Let me just start with the introduction since we have like over 100 people here. So I will just start with the introduction, why everyone joins us. So my name is Chichebem Agwacha, content creator for a girl project, talking about Ignite Her Voice, a gender shift in the making. It's the rethinking and reframing of girl empowerment in violence prevention programs in Nigeria. Okay, so we can start now. And so I'll be introducing our speakers for today. And I'll be starting off with the teen activists. Kudirat, Abiola, Susan, Ubogu, Temitayo, Asuni. I'll start with Kudirat. Kudirat is a 17-year-old child rights activist, currently at the African Leadership Academy, South Africa. She is the vice president of the Get Up Club, South Africa. Get Up is a movement under the United Nations which consists of teenage activists around the world. She continues to raise awareness through an online petition which is advocating for lawmakers to amend Section 29(4)(b) of the Nigerian Constitution, which indirectly legalized child marriage. And we also have Susan Ubogu. Susan Ubogu is an 18-year-old digital storyteller. Temitayo is a 17-year-old gender equality activist and a recipient of the Oracle Student Recognition Award. In 2017, she presented her school at the Oracle Hackathon, a gathering of coders. She emerged the first runner-up. She's a co-founder of the It's Never Your Fault, which has led various online campaigns against gender discrimination in Nigeria. The other speakers we have is Erica Nlewedim. She's an actress, a model, a founder of Erica Nlewedim Foundation. In 2018, she founded the Erica Nlewedim Foundation, a non-governmental organization geared towards catering to underprivileged children. The foundation embarks on periodical visits to orphanage homes with the donation baby supplies and other consumables. Our next speaker is Ibijoke Faborode. Ibijoke is an accomplished professional with a decade of cross-sectoral experience in resource mobilization, international trade and development, policy advisory, advocacy. Ibijoke is one Young World Ambassador, the Future Award Prize for Public Service nominee 2019, her Network Woman of the Year Award Advocacy nominee, recognized as one of the Nigerian's top inspiring women 2019 by Leading Ladies Africa, identified on Why Nigeria's Powerless 2018 policy, and also the Future Award Africa Prize for Professional Service nominee 2017. So that's our speakers for today, and we'll be starting with the teen activists. What are the issues facing the girl child in Nigeria?
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Kudirat Abiola. I am a co-founder of It's Never Your Fault, and today I'll be speaking on gender-based violence and most especially child marriage. Aisha was just 11 years old when she was forced to marry her 70-year-old husband. She did not want to leave her friends and family to go and stay in the home of a complete stranger, and she could not understand what was going on. She begged, she cried, and she was horrified. All she wanted was to be a child, go to school, and play outside with her friends. But no one listened to her. No one saved her. After several months of depression, suicidal thoughts, and abuse, she finally conceived. Upon delivery, she contracted vesicovaginal fistula, VVF, and as a result, Aisha had to undergo several operations. Her reproductive organs never returned to normal, and when her husband noticed, he returned her to her parents' home immediately and demanded a refund on the money he spent on her bride price. She is now unable to control her urine and excretion. She has to use diapers. She does not have an education, neither can she get a job, making her a liability to her family and the country at large. A patriarchal society blames Aisha and sees her as worthless, dirty, and the cause of her problems. She is stigmatized for being a divorcee, and no one wants to marry her at a very young age. She is now older and reflects on how society has failed her. Her right to education, Freedom of speech and right to consent all went down the drain. Now let's take a minute and imagine if Aisha was your sister, your cousin, your niece, or your daughter. How will you react? Will you keep quiet and watch her childhood being stripped away? Or will you stand your ground and speak up? Every single year, 12 million Nigerian girls are forced to experience what Aisha went through. A lot of people believe that child marriage only happens to Northern Muslims. However, in the same year, a 15-year-old girl from Anambra State was forced to marry Izuchukwu Igwilo, a mentally retarded man. Aisha, an 11-year-old girl from Kaduna State, was forced to marry a 75-year-old man, and 10% of child marriages still happen in the South. So this shows you that child marriage is not region specific and it happens everywhere. So what exactly is the issue? Mo Ibrahim once said, "The rule of law is the most important element in any civil society." How would child marriage be abolished when Section 29 4B of the Nigerian Constitution says any young woman married is deemed to be of full age? Meaning, even if an 11-year-old girl is forced into a child marriage, she is automatically considered an adult in the eyes of the law. You may argue that Section 21 of the Child Rights Act says no person under the age of 18 is capable of a valid marriage, and accordingly, a marriage so contracted is considered null, void, and of no effect whatsoever. But if I go on to tell you that Article 1, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Constitution says the Constitution is the highest order in the land, and if any other law contradicts the Constitution carries more weight. And besides, the Child Rights Act has not been domesticated in 12 northern states of Nigeria. If we can stop this, we will have 12 million more educated girls in the workforce, more entrepreneurs, our illiteracy rates will decrease, and we will be much more developed. So the question now is, how can this be stopped? Laws are what governs the country. It is the foundation. And if the foundation is weak, the country cannot be strong. Nigeria must have stronger policies and laws that protect the girl child and women's rights at large. There must be strict punishments attached to ensure that laws are obeyed. When we started our organization, It's Never Your Fault, with our online campaign, we realized the need for law reform. We created an online petition to raise awareness and call on lawmakers to amend the Section 29 4B and also domesticate the Child Rights Act in all Nigerian states. After getting thousands of signatures, we wrote to the House. However, we still wait for a response. Many people use culture and religion as an excuse for child marriage, but most of the scriptures and creed are taken out of context. There is certainly no excuse for child abuse. In conclusion, we as youths need to be involved in our society. We must educate ourselves on issues we are passionate about. We must look for peaceful ways to solve them. And it is important that we involve ourselves in nation building and provide solutions to national issues. This country belongs to us all, not only the government. I know this is easier said than done, but remember, there is no elevator to success. You must take the stairs, and difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. We will get there.
And we'll be taking questions and answers for the teen activists.
Perfect.
What do you have to say about the discrimination against pregnant girls in secondary schools? Do you think Nigeria should follow the likes of Zimbabwe, which have made it illegal for schools to expel pregnant girls? What can we achieve by having such protection for these girls?
I definitely do think that discrimination against pregnant girls in secondary school just compounds the disadvantages that they have. Like they're already in a situation where they have limited abilities to help themselves and to help get themselves out of their situation. So like now having to take away their education from that as well, it puts them at a further disadvantage. So I do think that if Nigeria was to follow the likes of Zimbabwe and like other countries that have made it illegal to expel girls like simply because of the fact that they are pregnant, I do feel like that would not only help the individual, but it would help Nigeria as a whole, because it would mean that we would have a lot more people who are educated and people who are literate and people who can add to Nigeria's economy as a whole. So I do think that it can only be a positive.
So what can we achieve by having such protections for these girls?
We can achieve only positive things. One, it would vastly increase their mental health. and their
Yeah.
independence, like to be able to know that they have at the barest minimum they have a secondary school education. But it will also help like the Nigerian economy as a whole, because it would mean that Nigeria has more people that are educated and more people who are literate and more people who can add to its economy and its GDP per capita.
So I want to take a question from the audience. What are the steps your organization is taking to restructure the policy that is against early marriage in Nigeria?
So we have there are essentially two facets to our plan. First, of course, is the legal and the constitutional side. We are working with lawyers, we are working with politicians to be able to amend the constitution. But that is only one part of our solution. We are also trying to work with people on the ground. We are trying to um, be able to reach people themselves and to be able to explain to them as to why child marriage is such a detrimental thing, like not only for the individual, but for the country as a whole. So, because it's one thing for us to just change the constitution and get it to be implemented, we also have to make sure that the Nigerian population like understand the reason behind this change and the reason why we are doing what we are doing.
Okay, thank you very much. And what initiative or efforts have been put in to eradicate child marriage?
So far, because we had to put it on pause, like during the whole NSARS movement and during COVID. But so far, we have been speaking to politicians, we've been speaking to senators, we've been quoting a plan of action to be able to reach the House of Representatives and the floor of the Senate to be able to get a bill to be sponsored so it could be voted on as to whether the Constitution will be amended. And going back to the answer I gave before, we're also trying to find ways to be able to reach mass large groups of Nigerians to be able to explain to them what we are doing and why it's being so and why it's so important that we achieve our goal.
Okay, so what kind of changes do girls require from our institutions, our structures, and system? Like, what kind of changes do girls require from these institutions and structures?
I feel like personally, Nigeria does women a great disservice. I feel like if women were given greater opportunities to have access to education, then we would be in a completely different place than we are right now. So I do believe that our institutions need to do better. They need to sponsor these women. They need to have faith in them, and they need to there needs to be laws put in place that no matter your gender, like no matter where like which part of Nigeria you are in, you have to go to school, whether it's a private or a public education. The barest minimum should be secondary school. So I do believe that we have to have laws in place to be able to get these institutions to comply.
Okay, aside having laws in place, because I mean, looking at the constitution and our government, aside having laws in place and all that, what can we women do as a group to push this forward?
The most important thing that we can do as a collective group is to make sure that we use our voices, because a lot of us like here today, like we are incredibly privileged. Like we had access to a device, we had access to data to be able to come and watch this. And so that means that we are able to use our voices to help those who don't have the opportunity and the means to speak up for themselves. So I do think that as a collective, we have to do our bit to help those who are unable to help themselves. But we also have to make sure that we keep the conversation going. Like we keep talking about these and we keep having these kinds of conversations within our circle of friends, within our families, like just keeping the momentum going and like making sure that people understand and truly understand why this is something that cannot be continued, something that cannot happen in 2020.
Okay, I agree with that. I'm trying to scroll through and get a question from the audience. This is from Blessing Obialo. What do you think should be the contributions of citizens to eradicate this? Okay, I think it's something we just talked. It's the same question with this last one we just spoke about now. Okay, from Vivi said, "What are the policies and laws in Nigeria in particular that protect child marriage, and also what role does your organization play in this matter in particular that protects child marriage, and also what role does your organization play in this matter?"
Okay, well, the specific policies that protect child marriage, I think, as Kudirat mentioned, was the fact that the Constitution allows people to get away with it, and that if a woman like finds the courage to take someone to court, she doesn't have any legal backing behind her because the Constitution says that any woman who is married is deemed to be an adult. So that's how the Constitution and like Nigerian policy in general protects child marriage. And what we are trying to do to change that as an organization is that we are, first of all, we are trying to get the Constitution amended. And we know that that's going to be an incredibly long process, but it's essential and it's crucial that we keep the momentum going. But we are also trying to speak to the public. We are trying to get to understand how big of an issue this is. We are trying to raise awareness. We are trying to make sure that everyone, from the people in their houses, in gated communities, all the way to the women in the markets, we are trying to make sure that they understand how important this is.
So how are you trying to raise awareness? Because people that don't have access to social media or online programs, how do you raise awareness to those certain kind of people or people in general? How do you raise awareness?
Definitely. So the first thing we did was we got on social media because that was the easiest way for us to be able to raise awareness really quickly. But before COVID and Corona, we were planning on doing a school outreach where we would go to public schools and we would explain to them the problems and we would give them the facts. But obviously Corona hit and everything has kind of been put on hold. But that is definitely something that we are planning on doing. Going to public schools and like targeting the core social group and the core demographic that is affected by this problem. And yes, just doing as much outreach as we can, just to be able to spread awareness.
Okay, so I saw a question that was intriguing too. So since women from Charity Emilike, since women are at a disadvantage over decision making where child marriages are concerned, how then would child marriages be stopped aside set down laws? And somebody again on the basis asked the same question: what then is to be done aside laws?
Again, that's part of what we are trying to solve. We are trying to talk to a majority of Nigerians and get them to understand why this is so detrimental. But we are also trying to, one, not just only make sure that the Constitution is amended, but make sure that laws and policies are put in place so that if you are found guilty of condoning child marriage or of marrying someone who's underage, you will there will be legal consequences, whereas you will either be fined or you'll be put in jail. So those are aside from amending the Constitution, those are also the legal policies that we are looking to put in place. But also just like knowledge, and because what we found out is that a lot of people don't really understand and they don't know what child marriage causes and like what it causes not only to the individual but to Nigeria as a whole. So there are two aspects to that question. To that question, one, we are going to make sure that the Constitution is amended and laws are put in place so as if you are found to be guilty of child marriage, you will be fined or you'll be fined accordingly or you'll be put in jail. And two, we are trying to get to a majority of Nigerians and just explain to them and like eradicate the ignorance that a lot of people have relating to this matter.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope she answered your questions, our audience. I hope she answered your questions. Thank you very much, Suzanne. This was quite insightful. Okay, sad we couldn't get Temitayo back in here.
Kudirat said she would be able to read Temitayo's speech.
Okay, that's fine. That would be perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Suzanne. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of everybody. It's quite inspiring that you and your friends are, you know, doing what you're doing. Teen activists, 18-year-old, 17-year-old. I don't know what I was in that 18-year-old for. It's quite inspiring and it is encouraging. Thank you very much. So Kudirat, can you come on and let's have Temitayo's speech.
Okay, thank you very much, Suzanne. I'm sorry, Temitayo has a problem with her connection, so I would be reading her speech out to you guys. We teach girls shame. Close your leg, cover your leg. We make them feel as though, being born female, they are already guilty of something. And so girls grow up to be women who cannot say they have a desire. They grow up to be women who silence themselves. They grow up to be women who cannot say what they truly think, and they grow up, and this is the worst thing we do to girls. They grow up to be women who have turned presence to an art form. This is an extract gotten from Chimamanda. We should all be feminist. In patriarchy, the wings of your dreamers are forcefully ripped out into hopes of humbling them so that you don't fly too close into the sun and they do not get burned. Under the guise of love, they break the legs of the girl child to leave her eternally grovel at the feet of men, unable to walk, unable to stand up against them. They brutally rip out the tongues of the adolescent girls, leaving them without a way to speak up for themselves. For there is no need to. They convince the girl child that she is nothing without a man, from her father to her husband. They limit her ability and confine her to a singular role, caring for a family. We gather here to inform ourselves of the multitude issues that plague the girl child. We gather here to inform ourselves on the multitude issues that plague the girl child, her inability to grow, her inability to dream, and her life which confines placed upon by society. As we discuss this issue, I would like for us to reflect on our own upbringing and challenge ourselves to break the cycle of shrinking ourselves and of shrinking others. According to the Indian Journal of Gender Studies, in 2010, the female adult literacy rates, ages 15 and above, for Nigeria was 59.4, in comparison to the male adult literacy rate of 74.4%. This is a clear reflection of the suppression that girls in Nigeria face in this society. Our mothers tell us to be humble and lower our heads and submit ourselves. Our fathers tell us we don't need an education. We do not need to be independent. We do not need to know book. They will have their husbands to depend on. In school, they are looked down on and treated with belittling attitudes. They don't know the power the girl child has. They underestimate her. In the corporate world, you are still looked down on by your subordinates, talk less of your boss. They ridicule you. Go back to the kitchen. Oh, I did not expect that from a girl. They want you to cower before them. Time and time again, we see intelligent, confident girls pushed down, suppressed, sidestepped for the men in the family. Regardless of her potential, she is cut from any dreams she has. She struggles to survive, yet she thrives. Like a stubborn desert flower, delicate bloom in this desolate world. With this world actively trying to rob you of your beauty, you relentlessly bloom. We understand your struggles, and we are here to change that for you. We wish to give you space to really spread your wings, a place where there is no limits to what you can be, a place where you can confidently open your petals and we shall bear witness to your beauty. To any woman in today's society, I say to you, we understand where you are coming from. We understand what you did to get here. We understand what you're doing to stay here. And bless you, beautiful souls. Let's try to make road easier for the next generation. Let's have these conversations to change the perceptions of people and the minds that possess it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kudi. That's why do we need to empower the girl child and how?
So first of all, let me say thank you to every single person. It's really nice to interact in this conversation. And I'm really happy that we've gotten to this place in Nigeria where we're seeing increased social consciousness, and people are beginning to just talk about gender issues like it's normal. It's not a taboo anymore, because a lot of people, there were certain sentimental attachments to talking about gender issues. So it's nice to talk about this. I'm going to start with a quote from Michelle Obama. And it says when girls. So I apologize. I see people say they can't see me, but you can hear me. So let's, it's. I will try as much as possible to address the issue, but I'm somewhere, unfortunately, where I can't turn on my camera. So I apologize for that. Yes, I'm going to start with a quote by Michelle Obama. And it says, when girls are educated, the countries become stronger and more prosperous. For me, this is a fundamental thing that everyone needs to know, right? So today you're asking why, why should we empower the girl child and how? First and first, just going by the conversations we've had today, the likes of Kudirat, Abiola, Temitayo, Asuni, Susan, Ubogu, this is why we should empower the young girl. We should empower them so that, they can take action, they can advocate for other girls, they can prepare the next generation, they can they can be bold, strong, beautiful women. So I'm going to start with a little exercise today. And I hope it's not just ladies we have here. For me, one thing I'm very conscious about, and I think that every organization should be conscious about, is when we want to speak about gender issues, especially issues that concern women, we need to also get our boys and our men into the room. The reason is because in a highly patriarchal society like Nigeria, we cannot talk about gender issues without involving men. We need men as allies. The same way we empower girls, right? It must not work in isolation. Men and boys must also be empowered as well. This is because if you're empowering just the girl child, what happens to the other half of the population? So it means that we're actually not dealing with patriarchy. And it's something that I'm seeing now. It's a model that I want every organization to be very cautious about. We're training girls now. We're seeing, in my generation, you're seeing a lot of empowered women, a lot of women that are breaking the glass ceiling, a lot of women that are told you're smart, you're tough. They're really challenging the stereotypes. But they are still facing this religious stereotype, this traditional stereotype, this societal stereotype, because society has failed to empower and train the boys and the men. So I'm very clear about what that's one thing I always tell people. I do not want to talk about empowering girls in isolation, because it is so important that we bring our boys and our men into the conversation. So, you're asking, why should we empower girls? Right? One of the things I would say is nation building, a just, fair, and equitable world, right? We need to strengthen our institutions. And also there's it's proven actually that when we empower women, when women get into elective office, right, they promote a more redistributive agenda. And this starts with the foundational knowledge. So I'm going to ask you a question now. How many of you ladies, and I think I want us to interact and engage, right? Because it's very important, as opposed to me just talking to you guys and you guys listening. How many of you ladies were, for one reason or the other, based on your gender, you were told you couldn't do something, you couldn't act a certain way, and this affected your confidence, affected the way you view life? How many of you, I want you to interact in the chat session and let me know your thoughts about that. How did the foundational knowledge you had about what it means to be a woman, how you should coordinate yourself, how did it affect you or where you are right now in life? And for the men, how many of you were actually consciously engaged or trained as young boys? Or so how many of you are being trained as young boys that women are equal? How many of you are taught about equal representation? How many of you are thought about, look, it's about competence and capacity. It's not about your gender. Your gender is not a disability, it's an ability. So men and women are the same. How many? I'm seeing a lot of interesting comments here, and that's just the fact. My dad felt like being an engineer was for men. So a lot of the stories, right? A lot of the stories. And what you see is, I'll give you an example. When I went to grad school for the first time, right? And my first degree was in Obafemi University, and then I moved to Paris a couple of years ago. I'm back in Nigeria now, obviously. I moved to Paris to do my master's. So that was I traveled, I was exposed. But you'll be so surprised how society shapes you. For the first couple of weeks or even months, I struggled with being outspoken. Right? Even though I had accolades in my career and my country. But for the first time, I dealt with self-esteem. And this is a function of society. This is how we train our girls. Not to speak, not to talk, be a wife material, this one, that one, don't dream too big, you don't want to be seen as being too ambitious, and then that also reduces your intellectual capacity as a woman. That means that you can't step into a space and you can't own a space. It means that you can't compete with men. So one thing I say is this: there's so many moving pieces to this. The ripple effect of what happens when we don't empower women. It leads to a very dysfunctional society. It leads to what Sandra and the other girls were talking about. In Nigeria at the moment, we have a Child's Right Act, right? Which is now a bill at the federal level. However, 11 northern states have failed to domesticate it, which means they're actually opening the floodgate for women, for young girls to be abused. Imagine in a democratic country. Now, what happens to this, just for you to understand the systemic issues we have. In Nigeria at the moment, where our laws are being made, where our policies are being formulated, across the parliament, we have less than 5% women's representation. Think about that. Let me tell you what it does. It's a game of numbers. You get to the National Assembly, you want to push for a bill. First of all, as a woman, it's dead on arrival, because you are surrounded by male politicians. So when you have a society that is not reflective of the composition of the people, which is men and women, that's what we see. That's why we're not spending a lot of time, social, human, and financial capital trying to amend these laws. If we have the foundational will, if we have the political will to actually empower women, we won't be seeing this. So I think I always want to take this from a very strategic angle, right? Where we are as a nation today is because the generation before us and before them failed us. They failed to tell us that we're young, we're smart, and that our gender is not a disability. They failed to let us know that you can dream big, you can aim big. It's about competency, and that you have a right to your body, you have a right to life, you have a right to education, you have a right to think, you have a right to run for elective office. You understand? Those things are very important. So I would say something. When people ask me, how can we empower the girl child? There are two different things to this. There's a micro level and there's a macro level. At the micro level, we need to start looking at, what, I mean, and I'm really inspired by, and I think we should commend them really and see how we can support them, the teenage activists. I think it's a very important and crucial thing, because the average, and this is not a shade, right? The average Nigerian teenager is so uninformed. Is so uninformed about a lot of policies, about a lot of things. I mean, it's also entrenched in the fact that we have a very dysfunctional education system, right? Where where civic engagement is almost is almost non-existent or is obsolete. Our curriculum, we're still using curriculums for 40 years ago. You understand? So people are educated, but they are not enlightened. And that's not good. That's not good, because then women are settling for administrative jobs, right? Yes, we talk about women. I mean, we're seeing a lot of women breaking boundaries today. But the truth is that what percentage of women are breaking boundaries? We shouldn't even be having this discussion, right? So I think it's very important. So just to summarize, because I didn't want to come for a lecture today. I wanted to make this a bit relatable to people, because I understand that I'm speaking with like a lot of younger people. So I don't want to go to, I don't want to go too technical, right? So on the why is think about the difference it would have made if you were empowered, right? If you were empowered as a child, if you were told that you could do anything, if you could dream, if you were able to run for class president without you thinking you should run for class vice president, if you were able to like play football like your other guys and just do things and dream from an onset, I can be a medical doctor, I can be a politician, I can be an engineer. Just think about what it would have done to your morale, to your self-esteem, to the world as well. Now, I think the onus is on us as individuals We need to pay attention, the younger people. I always say something. Social media can be a tool, it can be a curse, and it can be a blessing. Within your immediate network, across your family, your school, religious places, try to engage people on the need for empowering young women, right? Even our parents have a lot of work to do. Someone said that is it someone? Yeah, and that's very important as well. The family system is such an important part of the formative years of any girl child, because it's at that time in your life that you start growing your social consciousness. Every child is born with innocence. The same way we talk about racism, AIDS, these things, you develop them once you start getting aware. So the family system is so important. Our religious Nigeria is a very religious, actually one of the most religious, even the most religious country in the world. Our religious organizations have a role to play as well. That's the how. Ensuring that you are educating your followers in the right way, that equal representation belongs to everyone. And so this is a multi-stakeholder thing. Our school, at the macro level, there has to be like a national reform of the educational sector to ensure that the civic engagement is an integral part of our learning system. At the workplace, there should be clear laws guiding discriminatory policy and acts. People should actually be persecuted. There should be enforcement of policies. But it still goes down to this, the family system. Because once you get it wrong from the foundation, there is nothing. It's so, the chances of society reshaping you is almost like a 20/80. You will now need to be acting, you now need to act very conscious. So what I would say is, not one person can empower a child. It takes a village. And when I think about my future children, I think about what kind of girl child do I want, right? A girl child that is informed, a girl child that can dream, a girl child that will tell me, Mommy, I want to be president. And she's so conscious from the onset. She's equipping herself with literature, with knowledge, with fellowships, with internship. She's growing her community. She's growing her intellectual curiosity as well. So the family, religious institutions, our educational institutions, the society we have an integral role to play. So I think I'm going to stop here, but I'm going to finish with some final words, right? The boy child and the girl child must be equally empowered. These two cannot be effective in isolation. As we empower the girl child not to limit herself, to understand that she has a right as a human being, we must start breeding a new generation of young progressive men who do not see girls as second-class citizens. I'm going to leave it here. I hope I spoke a little bit to what you wanted to hear today.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much, Joke. You mentioned we should get parents and schools involved. What about girls who are not in schools, considering that girl education is, still a big problem in Nigeria, or girls with no parents? How do we reach those types of girls, this type of girls?
I like the question you just answered now, because yes, obviously, and that was why I said it takes a village. So in areas where you don't so I'll give, for example, now the NSAS campaign. Before the North actually understood what it meant, it was towards the end, right? And it took a couple of conscious people to start printing the information and translating in Hausa. They were printing on pamphlets. They were now doing radio. They were doing radio shows on in the local dialect, right? And so it means that there has to be streamlined communications for each stakeholder. For the local communities, it starts with engaging the men in that community. Look, I've worked in this space, and one thing that is very sure is that we will not get anywhere, because Nigeria is a highly patriarchal society. We will not get anywhere if we don't engage the men. But in those societies in the North, I'm very big on the North, because the North has the highest rate of out of school children, number one, and then also child marriage in the North is so crazy as well. So for me, is engaging those men and helping them understand what is at stake, engaging them in a way where they don't feel like they are being attacked. It has to be strategic. Activism has to involve diplomacy and a bit of rigor, resilience, and how will I say, intellectual application. You can't just go and do gra. I want it now. You must understand what is driving them to take this decision and then try to tackle it. Town hall meetings. So, the religious leaders in the community, the different associations. Because usually for communities where you see those kind of entrenched cultural practices, they have a huge sense of community. So usually they look to a leader to direct them. So if you can actually drive information from a leader in that community, from the key stakeholders in that community, so the top-down approach when it comes to grassroots level really, really works.
Okay, so it's one thing to get to these girls, to reach out to them. It's another thing to convince and encourage them to be interested in this, interested in being empowered, because illiteracy is on a high level, is on a high percentage. So how do you intend to encourage, or I don't want to use the word convince, so let me use the word encourage. How do you intend on encouraging these girls, these women, to be interested in this empowerment?
So here's the first thing. If you don't see role models, you don't even think it's impossible. We must start retelling. So impact, I'm very big on impact storytelling, no matter how little. Let these girls understand. You see, there's something about thought-provoking and virtual communications. Tell the story of women who have come from their communities, who have dared to be different, who have defied the odds, who have broken the glass ceiling, no matter how little. They will start thinking of themselves in the shoes of these women. They will start seeing the possibilities. It's so important for us to understand multi-stakeholder engagement. Someone said testimonies work like magic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They work like magic. You must tell the stories. You must help them understand. And then you start seeing a very gradual sense of awareness, social consciousness start growing. And then they're more curious. They want to read books. They want to ask questions. So many things. They start pushing back on a number of things. It's not that those girls are not interested. It's because they don't know anything else. So it's about finding those stories and bringing it to them in a language that they understand, in a way that it's easily digestible to them, so that they understand that, look, I can do anything. And so it's not about, and that's why I'm very weary about a lot of international organizations that engage on, community engagement. We start with the big things without really understanding that the models that work in civilized countries might not work here without localizing them. We must understand the local context. We must understand how their mindset operates, and then try to curate information that they can understand. Yeah, that's it for me. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually a good one, because, like you said, testimonies work like magic. Thank you so much, Joke. Really appreciate you being on here, and I'm sure everyone picked one thing or two from this section.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on to our next speaker. Nice having you. So our next speaker is Erica.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Erica. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very
So we'll
much.
go straight.
So bodily integrity, according to the definition in the dictionary, it means owning your body, taking ownership of your body, knowing that you have the right to control everything about your body. No other human being on this earth has the right to control what you wear, or where you wear it to, or what you do with your body, your sexuality, whether or not you want to have kids, whether or not you are wearing something to a particular place at a particular time. Everything has to do with body integrity. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. It has to do with confidence also. Every girl or everyone in this world, particularly girls, should have that confidence. And normally there's no confidence because a lot of people slut shame, or there's a lot of violence. When a girl dresses like a certain way, there's violence against her. Like in my own experience, there's a particular time I was on a movie set and I decided to just walk to buy something at the nearest market. And some people harassed me on the road. They're like, "Oh, why are you wearing this dress?" It was yeah, I like my DVs. So it was a dress with a DV, and then I was walking down the street, and then some men were like, "Why would you wear something like this?" So you left your house wearing something like this, and then the man started dragging my dress. So we need to talk about stuff like that. It's not normal. It's not right, and most people actually believe that it is okay for them to correct. Oh, this actually happened, but obviously the memory cannot leave my head. Girls, like we're not. I'm not blaming only men, because women also slut shame. Men slut and they harass. So we need to actually stop things like this. And how do we stop things? We need to start having organizations. We need to support organizations like a Girl Child Project. Everybody, every woman should have the right to say, okay, I'm going out by any time of the day, whether day or night. She can wear whatever she wants to wear. And she can go out without the fear of getting harassed because of what she's wearing, or fear of getting raped because, oh, she was wearing a short skirt or something. Every woman should have the freedom to be any sexual involvement with anybody, and she shouldn't be blamed because she's a woman. I've noticed that this is a regular thing that happens. A man and a woman get involved, typically. Who did they blame? They blame the woman. Oh, after letting him touch you up and down. A man and a woman might get involved physically, but it's always the woman they blame. Like they make it look like if a man and a woman are involved, they make it look like, oh, the woman is not maybe she's not enjoying it, so it's just the man's it's a man's benefit.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the man that benefits from the lady, and the lady is used, and she's left to be thrown away after, and then the man is he goes scot-free. Why? I don't get. This is something that has to do with both parties, both consenting adults, right? So nobody should have the right to slush anybody based on decisions made by adults, right? Exactly. So bodily integrity also involves when you shame certain women for not marrying, or getting married at a particular age, or having children back to back, or not even having. It's like I've seen people insult people for the strangest things. They insult people based on, oh, nobody will marry you. See how this one is even looking. Or they
The
say,
most common one is the second hand. Like when you've been married and you divorce, it'll be like, oh, you're second hand. Nobody's going to want you anymore.
exactly. And I noticed that it's the women that gets blamed like this. Nobody really blames the men. I
Yeah.
feel like it's just we need to unlearn a lot of things. We need to unlearn so many things, because it's I'm not really going to blame a lot of people. The thing is, it's something they've grown up hearing. So they've decided to just go on with it because that's what they know. But we need to just educate people that it is not right. It makes people feel bad. And I'm sure they themselves, they don't want to be on the receiving end of all those kind of insults. So we need to have more and more discussions like this. And especially men need to hear more about how it makes women feel when you either um, slut shame or harass or just insult women based on certain things that they do with themselves or with their bodies, whether dressing, whether their looks. Some women are insulted for even having low cuts. They will say this one looks like a man. It is her decision to have low cuts or not. Or even if she wants her nails to be like 10 inches. It's her decision. I don't think any. Okay, so we need to because most people who are not on the receiving end of body shaming or slut shaming or anything, they're usually men. Men are not usually insulted based on look. Men are not usually insulted based on what they do with their bodies. So when they insult people because of maybe how they grew up and what they've seen other people doing in the past, they just feel it's normal to also pass on this type of insults. and they don't know how it feels because they've never been on the receiving end of it. I feel like that's the best way to start. We need to start educating little boys before they grow up into men. We should stop also insulting people around children, because when you insult people around children, the children grow up hearing things like this and they feel it's normal, and then they repeat those insults over and over, and when they grow up they just feel it's a norm. It's not right. So also for grown-ups who have already become used to making other people feel bad, especially women also, I've been slut shamed. I have been everything, and it mostly comes from women. The thing is, we should be our supporters. We should not be fighting against each other. We should not feel holier than thou, or I'm better than this person, or and start putting someone else down. Nobody wants to be on the receiving end of insults and everything. Even if you don't agree with something that someone is doing, there's so many ways to put it. And everyone should know that you have no right to control what someone else does with their own bodies. I think when people know that you have no right to control what someone else wears or what someone does with their body, or someone being physically involved with another person, or how many children, or if the person doesn't even want to have children at all, well, I feel like everyone has their own values and their own morals. Your value is different from my value. Your morals are different from my own morals. So you shouldn't enforce your own morals on me. We might all, like, nobody is going to agree with every single person in the whole world. We are all different, right? But it doesn't mean that you should try and force it on someone else or start insulting people based on that, or even harassing. Because there's a lady, I saw it in the news a long time ago. She was raped because she wore trousers, NYSC uniform trousers, and she was in the north. What's the name again? Grace Ushang. Yes. She was raped by a lot of men just because she wore trousers, and it was wrong for them to see a woman wearing trousers. They didn't appreciate how she looked, and they decided to punish her by raping her. And that's just horrible. Nobody has the right to do that to anybody. Even to insult someone based on, oh, you're wearing this. You have no right to insult someone based on what they are wearing. Then to actually rape someone or to harass the person or to even touch, nobody has a right to touch a hair on someone's head. Yeah, so things like that, we should just have more conferences like this. I think things like this work because when we get to hear things like this over and over and over, it becomes the norm. Everybody listening now, wherever you are, if you see somebody getting harassed, speak up for the person. Don't join in. If you see someone getting physically harassed, shout for help. I'm not saying you yourself should put yourself in harm's way, but shout for help. Gather as many people as possible to help. Do you get? And if it's just verbal insults, stand up for the person. Let the person feel like it is not right, because it is actually not right. You cannot insult someone based on what the person wants to do with their own bodies. That's it.
Yeah, so you talked about the girls being denied the rights over their own bodies, where, their bodies are considered properties of others. How early would you say we should start teaching girls about bodily autonomy? Why is it important to start early?
I think as early as possible. I can't say, at a particular age, or maybe at 2 years old or 5 years. I think as early as the person can understand, as early as a child can understand. I think every parent or every adult around a child should make the child feel like you are enough, you're confident. You do not belong to any other human being. You are not a toy or a pet or something. You are going to grow up to make your own decisions for your life. So nobody has any right to enforce anything on you. That is it. So as long as a child can understand, you should start.
And why is it
Exactly.
important to start early?
It's important to start early because when a child is growing up, the words they hear affects their confidence. There's a joke. People say the best time to tell your child anything is tell them when they are still too young to question you. When they are young, they believe everything you say. So I think that's the best time. When children are young, tell them everything that will increase their confidence level, that will increase their sense of self-worth, and knowing that when you grow up, you are your own property. You are not any human being's property. You are not a slave. You are not a pet or a parrot or someone else owns. So as long as the child can understand, even starting from 2 years old, start letting the person know you are enough, because that's the formative years are when the child begins to grow.
Yeah.
And you know that some children with traumatic childhoods, those are the children that have like self-esteem and all of that. So it's from young age. It has to be from the young age. Yeah.
Okay. So how many still do not believe that women have the right to refuse sex with their spouse? So what do you think about this?
Wait. Your question is, a lot of people feel like women do not have the right to refuse
Refuse
sex.
sex.
To refuse.
Yes, refuse sex with their spouses.
People are not, you're not anybody's property. If you do not feel like having sex with somebody, then please state it. And whoever you are married to or you're in a relationship with should be understanding, because they don't own you also. They don't own you. So if you find out that you are not with someone who is understanding, well, you can stand up for yourself. You are not going to go through life being bullied or making someone feel like they own you. Because if you keep accepting it, that will never change. You will always be in that situation till you are old. Who wants to live a life like that? I'm sure nobody wants to live a life like that. Whatever will keep happening. So,
I mean, I think as regards to our culture, African culture, that says, when you're married to a man, you belong to him. Your body, everything belongs to him. So in that sense, if you want it at this particular time, whether you're dying or anything is happening to you, you have to give it to him.
yes, and yeah, that happens. That happens a lot because of a lot of maybe the cultural values and everything, and that's why things are changing. That's why we need to have more and more educative. It's always best to educate people. A lot of people have to unlearn a lot of things. Like, people have to unlearn, especially people who are already set in their ways. They're adults already. They've grown up. It's all they know. So it's very difficult for them to just change. But we're not going to give up. We have to keep having talks like this. We have to spread awareness everywhere. The more people talk about it, the more we are going to start accepting it at some point. So we need to have more and more talks like this. We need to reach out to. The thing is, the solution is more and more people should not keep quiet. That's it. The more people speak out, the more will be united, and there'll be like a strong force pushing back against everything that has been the norm that is not right. You get, if one or two people are speaking up, nobody really pay attention. But if one person here is speaking up, another person there, and then we're all joined together, we are going to be much stronger. So everyone keep speaking up, and we just join forces with every other person speaking up, and it will grow. And it will be the habit of people to just know that it is not right. That's it. Whether it's culture, whether it's not culture, it is still not right. Women are not toys. Yeah, women are not pets.
Okay. One last question from me before we take questions from the audience. What do you think of the general notion that parents should maintain stricter control over their daughters than their sons? Because this is actually what accumulates, or what brings up the whole men feeling like they have control over women. So do you think that the general notion that parents should maintain stricter control over their daughters than their sons?
No, because and men are human beings alike. There's no greater human being than the other. A man is not greater, a woman is not greater, both equal level of importance. So a woman should not be differently or disciplined differently. Okay. There was a particular popular celebrity who was interviewed and said that he would discipline his daughter differently than the son. And there was a backlash. And I agree with that because it is not right. It is totally not right. It is not right um to discipline the woman differently from the son because men and women are equal. We are all going to grow up to be productive members of the society, and some people should not be able to just get away with indiscipline.
Even if you want to tell a girl child or a boy child, okay, you're not supposed to do this thing, you're meant to tell them, okay, this is why you shouldn't do it again. How do you deal with negativity and body shaming?
I just ignore. I focus on what is actually important, and everything I need inside me. So what I do with negativity is that I just ignore it. I actually just ignore it to the point where it doesn't even exist. I make sure my circle or the people who have access to me is just full of very, very few people. And few people around me are very important people who have been with me for years. I know them, they are positive people, I know their mindsets and everything. So that's the only thing that's allowed in my space. Because if I allow myself to be exposed to external forces or haters or people body shaming me or insulting me, I will break down, and I cannot afford to break down. So I choose to make my circle small. I only listen to the people around me, my loved ones. That's it.
Okay, that's perfectly nice.
I just read a statement. Someone said, but it's not easy to ignore. The thing is, if you don't read it, you won't see it. So obviously most of the hate or the body shaming and all that, they come as messages or comments. I don't read it. I don't read messages. I don't read.
So what if you read them? Like what if you just mistakenly your eyes just go through to them and you read it?
And then if I see it, I just laugh about it because it's not coming from someone important.
Okay, so it has to come from someone important to,
Yes, and if someone important, first of all, the people important to me, apart from my fans, are my family and my friends, my very, very small circle. My fans are loving people. My fans don't insult me. The people who insult me are not my fans. So they're blocked. They're either blocked on social media or they're just blocked mentally. I just don't see them. I ignore completely, and I just focus on the ones that are important. We focus on the love, and obviously the love is more than the hate. So if there's so much love, you. The one that focuses on the hate, there's no point. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think that's all. That's all the questions for now. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate this. Was quite an insightful discussion and topic. So everybody, thank you so much. We at the Girl Project, we thank you for joining us in our discussion today. Thank you to all our speakers. We appreciate you. And a Girl Project is launching a book this Christmas for parents to use to educate both their boys and girl child about consent and bodily integrity. So for anyone interested, they should follow us on Instagram for more updates. Our Instagram handle is at a Girl Project NG. The book will be made available for free. So we thankful to all our partners and all our donors. And thank you to everybody that joined the discussion this evening. We appreciate each and every one of you.